Hey, what's up, everybody? Welcome to the podcast. All right, we got a lot of things to get into and not a lot of time to get into it. We'll pop the first picture up. It is now time for the crazy NFL draft reactions. You guys are goofy, man. I swear to God. Look, I get it. You know, the NFL, it's the most popular sport in America. It's a huge time. This is the draft. I say this is like the baseball opening weekend where everybody gets a chance to have new hope, new future, new players. We could do this. We can go here. We can do that. And so you get excited, and I understand that. But then we get into, again, these every Tom, Dick, Wad, and Harry's opinion about, you know, who did good, who did bad. This pick was good. This pick was terrible. And you actually give grades. The ink hasn't dried on the contract yet. You're giving grades like you actually know what's going to happen in the future with these guys. It is bananas to me that you guys think you can pull this off. And again, it's probably the hardest thing to predict other than the NCAA bracket, you know, picking that. I cannot think of something that's a little bit more difficult than trying to understand or grade so far who did good and who did bad in the NFL draft, yet you guys continue to do it. I find it absolutely fascinating. Again, I'm excited. I get that you're excited, and I want to clarify, I don't want to say that grades necessarily are a bad thing when you look at it at the perspective of, again, you're excited for the future, so why don't we, you know, look at, oh, well, this team lost their wide receiver, this team lost their guard, so they needed to draft here, they need to draft here, they need to do this. I understand that. What I'm frustrated with and what I want to discuss is the idea of they picked a certain player at that position and you, quote, already know. You already know whether that was a good or a bad pick, and I just think that is absolutely fascinating that after how many years of doing this, you can still be that arrogant. I don't think there's maybe, again, other than the NCAA bracket, anything harder to pick than who's going to do good and who's going to do what and who's going to go where and who's going to have success. I mean, Mel Kiper, if we can go to this picture. Mel Kiper, to give you an idea, he does this for a living. And I know some of you want to diss him, but this guy does this all day and night. This is all Mel Kiper does is try to work on grade and understand and predict draft picks. And I mean, he's got 1,000 quotes, but here's a couple of them, you know. If Jimmy Clausen isn't the most successful quarterback in the world, then I'm done. That's it. When they drafted Calvin Johnson back in the day in 2007, he was like, oh man, they should have gone to quarterback. They should have drafted Brady Quinn. He also said Lamar Jackson should have gone to wide receiver. He said Johnny Manziel. And I was with him. I thought Johnny might be, you know, one of the greatest quarterbacks ever at one point in time and should have been one of the top picks. But it's so many hard. There's an intangible to this, especially at the quarterback position. And so this year, after the NFL draft just happened, we do know that 6 of the top 12 picks were quarterbacks this year, which is the all-time record setting. That's the most quarterbacks ever. And of any position in any part of the NFL draft, besides just the silliness of thinking you know what these kids are going to do in the future, there is no tougher position in all of sports to try to predict the outcome of before it happens as the quarterback, because there's just too many intangibles. There's too many intangibles being quarterback. If all you had to do was throw the ball and run really well, Jamarcus Russell would be on his way to the Hall of Fame. Josh Allen would be outperforming Patrick Mahomes in multiple Super Bowls so far. There is an intangible to the quarterback spot, and the best way I can define it, and I've always tried to explain it, is that the quarterback's job, besides being able to run, throw, and execute the offense, he's got to make his team believe. He has to be the man. He has to be the face of the franchise. He has to be able to handle that pressure. He has to be able to lead his teammates. He has to be able to speak to different groups and different cultures in different ways. And in the end of the day, besides just being able to perform on first and second, he's got to be able to nail third downs. He's got to be clutch. You don't really know that until they get there under those bright lights. But in the end, also, he just has to make everyone else go, you know what? We got the man. And so if we got the man, I know if I do my job, I know he's going to do his. You look at any great, Patrick Mahomes, Tom Brady, Joe Montana, you can go down the list. You can see that when his teammates stepped on the field, the number one thing they did better than anybody else out there, besides being able to complete third down and make clutch throws, you could just see the swag and confidence of all other of the 50-some-odd teammates that go, you know what? We got the dude. So if he does what he's got to do, I know I can do what I got to do, and we're going to win this damn game. That is something you can't predict on a 40 time. You can't predict by how far he can throw it. That is something you're going to find out when they get there. I mean, you look at, this is just to show you, you look at Goat Mountain. You look at the greatest of all times, like, you know, Brady, I'll put Mahomes up there, Joe Montana, and then I'll put Favre and A-Rod for the Packers. I'll put them as a combined package there. Just so you know, Brady was picked 199th, Patrick Mahomes was picked 10th, Joe Montana was picked 82nd, Brett Favre was picked 33rd, A-Rod was picked 24th. Even at those times, and these are GOATs, we had no idea, and none of them were picked number one because it is, again, an intangible thing to try to figure out. Can he lead? Can he make players believe? Can he handle the pressure? Are there all these things you're going to find out? You cannot find out through an underwear Olympic, some sort of combine workout. You can't really tell by what they did in college. It's a whole different world. And so to try to say, oh, I'm giving an A+ to them, I'm giving a B- to them, is frustrating and stupid and kind of insufferable, if you ask me. So to give you an idea, for the last 20 some odd years, we can go to this picture. This is just to kind of break down even more what I'm talking about. So somebody put this up the other day because really it's the quarterbacks with 6 out of 12 being drafted in the NFL draft this year, setting an all-time record. I just want to reiterate just how difficult this is. Now, this one's kind of complicated and I had to edit it a little bit. But if you look, this is all the top number one picked quarterbacks since the year 2000. So all of these are the number one picks overall at the quarterback position. They were picked number one in the entire NFL draft since the year 2000. And I'm sorry, if you look at the bracket, it's not exactly murderer's row. I mean, yes, at the end of it, you got Matthew Stafford and Eli Manning. I also put in red boxes some that didn't make their list. I don't know how Joe Burrow was knocked out that early, or Andrew Luck or Trevor Lawrence. But even then, I mean, that's the cream of the crop by people saying, oh, this is the surefire number one pick. This quarterback is by far the best quarterback in the entire, NFL draft, and he's going to be the one that's going to lead his team to the future. You take the last 20 some odd years of people that have tried to do that. You have at best Joe Burrow, Trevor Lawrence, Eli Manning, Matthew Stafford, and I mean other guys on there were decent. Michael Vick was up and down. There's some decent players in there, but the yellow part, the part that I highlighted there, those are the actual best quarterbacks since the year 2000. You got Patrick Mahomes, Aaron Rodgers, Ben Roethlisberger, Lamar Jackson, and I threw Josh Allen in there. But to give you an idea, none of them were picked number one. Patrick Mahomes picked 10th. A-Rod was picked 24th. Ben was picked 11th. Lamar was 32nd. Josh Allen was like 7th. So the top 5 quarterbacks I can think of that were the actual best quarterbacks since the year 2000, none of them were picked number one. The best you have of the number one groups is, again, Manning and Stafford, and I don't really know if they're actually better than a Burrow or a Lawrence or even an Andrew Luck, but they had some, postseason success, so I guess they put them there. But even then, none of them are A-Rod. None of them are Mahomes. You know what I'm saying? So this is a personal, not a vendetta. I don't want to go that far and say vendetta, but it's annoying. It's annoying that we're already grading things when the ink hasn't dried on a contract yet, and I got to listen to you asswipes go, oh, this team clearly failed. This team, shut up. I mean, look, in the end, it's we'll see. In the end, it's we'll see. This is one of my favorite stories, and I'm going to tell it here with the video in just 1 second. But the story of we'll see, to me, encapsulates everything that I'm talking about. This talks to me about the NFL draft, seeing what's going to happen in the future, and trying to understand that you're never going to know, or especially really at the actual moment, what's good, what's bad, what's going to be great, what's going to be terrible for your team. You just have to let things play out. So the story of we'll see, I will use with it. I'm going to tell you the story. It's one of my favorite parables of all time. It actually helped me out in life. And I'm going to use the Houston Texans and what they did just a couple seasons ago to kind of prove to you why I find some of this a little bit silly. So if you could pop up this video here for me. The story of Will C. is one of my favorites, and it goes like this. So a long time ago, there was a wise old man, there was a young son, and there was one horse, and they were struggling on a farm. In that situation, the horse finally just runs off. So now the old man and the son are out of luck. Their last horse to plow their field runs off. Villagers all come up and go, oh man, that sucks. Your last horse left. What are you going to do? The old man just goes, you know what? We'll see. So after that, the horse comes back a couple days later. Turns out the horse left because it sniffed out a mare. So now they don't have one horse, they have 2 horses. So villagers come back and go, oh my God, isn't this great? You don't have 1, you have 2. Old man goes, we'll see. Well, the son tries to train the new horse. It's wild. Horrible accident. Son loses his leg. Villagers come back. Oh my God, your son lost his leg. That is terrible. What are you going to do? This is tragic. Old man goes, we'll see. Not much longer after that, a cavalry shows up. They're about to go to battle. They're about to go to war. They said, we need every able-bodied person we can find. We need your son. Old man says, well, you can't use my son. He only has 1 leg. That cavalry goes off. Every last one of them dies. So villagers come back and they go, oh my God, well, you're so lucky your son didn't have to go to war. Old man says, we'll see. So the point of that, again, was that you never know. You never know exactly what's going to be good or bad in the future. The Houston Texans, just so you know, just 2 seasons ago, to kind of, help you smell what the podcaster's cooking here, they were 2-13-1. They were on their way to the number 1 pick. They were down 31-24 to the Indianapolis Colts in the last game of a meaningless season. And in the last 54 seconds, those idiots decide to actually win the game. They score a touchdown. They get a 2-point conversion, and they actually win the game. And I had to listen to all you Houston Texans fans go, oh, my God, our life is over. We had the number 1 pick. They won this meaningless game. Now we have the number 2 pick instead of number 1. We are screwed. This is our luck, blah, 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 blah. Well, in the end, they didn't just, get that number 2 pick. They were able to trade up and also get the number 3. And instead of taking Bryce Young, who turns out so far to be a bust, you got C.J. Stroud, you got Will Anderson. You're able to make the playoffs in just 1 year. Your future looks extremely bright. You just signed Schultz. You just got Stephon Diggs. You got Mixon. You look like one of the top 3 teams in the AFC. Meanwhile, Carolina, the team that got your number 1 pick, still sucks out loud, and Bryce Young so far does not look like the quarterback of the future who you would have taken if you actually would have won that game and probably kept that number 1 pick. We'll see. In the end, you don't know at the moment what's good, what's bad. This is something that isn't just applicable to sports. This is applicable to life, something I have lived my life by. It helps you just kind of understand that you have to wait things out and see before you can make a final decision. And so that's why I'm saying, you NFL draft people and your overreactions and your silliness, take a breath, man. Just try to understand. You don't know yet. And just like the Texans 2 seasons ago who were, oh my God, we blew the number 1 and we're going to be stuck with CJ. Yeah, you're stuck with CJ, who's arguably probably the best quarterback prospect we've seen in the last 20 years. We'll see. Atlanta Falcons fans, let me talk to you. This is the one I'm going to focus on. I'm not going to sit here and try to break down every pick because, again, I find that annoying. But the Falcons at 8 is a perfect example. This whole fan base, calm the F down. What are you guys so, bitching about? The Atlanta Falcons fan base has lost their minds because at number 8, they picked a quarterback, and I even got the reactions here, Corey, if you can pop it up for me. So, again, this is just to epitomize everything that I'm saying and I've been rambling about for the last 10 minutes. The Atlanta Falcons picked Penix from Washington at 8. Good quarterback, and this is how they reacted at the draft.
The 2024 NFL Draft, the Atlanta Falcons select Michael Penix.
Oh, throw your hat. Oh, we picked Penix. What did you do? Oh, the world is ending. I paid good money for these seats, and I watched the Falcons, and you picked Penix. What are you doing? We suck. The world's over. Oh, my God. They already signed Kirk Cousins. What are they doing? They just signed Kirk Cousins to a 4-year, $180 million deal. They ignored their immediate needs. They could have got a pass rusher. They could have got a wide receiver. I mean, they're only, if they would have done that, they could have pushed towards the future and a Super Bowl run next season. Super Bowl run next season? Excuse me. You guys were 7-10. You were 3rd in a bad NFC South. There's a reason that you picked 8th. You signed Kirk Cousins. Suddenly, you're only 1 defensive end away from a Super Bowl run. Who the hell are you talking to? And so I had to listen to everyone say they shocked the world. They made this terrible decision. And again, you have no idea. But even on logic, it's Kirk Cousins. As a 36-year-old dude who, by the way, is coming off an Achilles tear and has never won a big game. Do you know that Kirk Cousins is 16-47 in games versus 500 teams? I'm going to repeat that in case this thing isn't on. He is 16-47 versus 500 teams. So any team with a winning record, he is 16-47 against. He's coming off an Achilles tear, and he's 36 years old. And because Atlanta had the foresight to at least go, this might not work out, even though we signed him for a bunch of money, let's go ahead and draft another quarterback. I got to listen to you dickwads go, oh my God, this is the stupidest, craziest. What are they doing? It's insanity that they would. Really? We should have got a pass rush. We should have got a wide receiver. We could make a Super Bowl run. You were 7-10. Take it down. There was nobody going, the Atlanta Falcons. The Atlanta Falcons are 1 player away. So they went and did their backup, but you're acting like, if you would have got Odunze or Latu or Murphy, suddenly you're ahead of San Francisco, Detroit, or Philly, clearly the best teams in the NFC. And even if you would have got past them, let's say next year, let's just go completely bananas and say that you actually pulled that off. You're beating Kansas City or Baltimore at the AFC? Really? Really? That's all you needed? Oh, they screwed up the 8th pick. Our life is over. I mean, and this is, by the way, as Atlanta and others, there's a reason that 6 of the top 12 picks this year were a quarterback pick, and there was a rush at quarterbacks because the entire league, all the teams are learning very quickly. You either got a quarterback or you ain't got shit. You can figure out every other part of your team. You can figure out every other part of your roster. You ain't got the QB. You ain't got shit. 6 of 12 was not just by some mistake or that suddenly this was the greatest run of quarterbacks ever. There was still, a lot of guys that are not any better than years prior where this many weren't picked this high. But teams are learning, and the Atlanta Falcons are definitely learning you cannot put all your eggs in one basket. Just ask the New York Jets. New York Jets thought they nailed it. Oh, we brought in Aaron Rodgers. He didn't even make it out of the first quarter, and their season was done. Kirk Cousins is 36 with an Achilles tear, and is 16-47 versus 500 teams, and you guys are that pissed off that they picked a good prospect to back him up. And by the way, if you're good, let me throw this out there. If you are as good as you pretend to be, it'll be years before you get another chance at number 8. So, the Atlanta Falcons as an organization looked and they said, well, we got the number 8 pick, and I think they're smarter than you and go, dude, we're not San Francisco yet. We're not Philly. We're not one player away. This will be probably a while before we get a number 8 pick, and be able to pick one of the top quarterback prospects again. They're dropping like flies. Everybody is already getting taken off the board. We like Penix. Let's take Penix because I know we're not going to win next year, but that at least sets us up at the main position you have to be set up for. At quarterback, we have a veteran who's good, but he's a bridge quarterback, and then we're going to have the quarterback of our future that he can mentor, just like, the Green Bay Packers. And I know it's not a perfect comparison, but when they drafted Jordan Love, when they already had Aaron Rodgers, they thought they were crazy. The Green Bay Packers are probably the only organization, right now I can think of in the last 30 years that have not had to worry about a quarterback in forever. They went from Favre to Rodgers and now to Love, and they have not skipped a beat. And every year, subsequently, they've actually been pretty good. But this just idea in the head and watching y'all just go, oh my God, we picked Penix. And then listen to experts go, they shocked the world. It's the craziest thing ever. What are they doing? Because you've got Kirk Cousins, who's never won against any decent team, 16-47 against anybody with a winning record. He just tore his Achilles, 36 years old. And he's not, even if he's healthy, he's not a top 10 quarterback. We'll see. Could be the worst pick ever. I don't know. That's the point. That's the fun of watching the season going forward. But I just had to remind you guys just how goofy you are when it comes to this situation, and and I get it. You want to react. It's been a while. I got withdrawals. I want to talk about the NFL season, and I can make opinions about things. These kids have not even gone to training camp. Calm down. This is a fun one here. This is y'all. This is 2017. Just to give you an idea, Patrick Mahomes, the guy who's catching up now to Tom Brady, is the greatest of all time. When they picked him at 10, I heard 1,000 of these videos, but this guy went viral again. If you can play this for me. This is basically how I look at a lot of y'all with the grades and the opinions, even the experts. This is what y'all sound like to me. This is when they drafted Patrick Mahomes back in 2017. Sounds like a lot of y'all.
In the 2017 NFL Draft, the Kansas City Chiefs select Patrick Mahomes, his second.
Really?
Oh.
Really? Are you kidding me? This is why this organization will never win a Super Bowl in my lifetime. Listen, the Chiefs haven't picked a quarterback in 35 years, and when they do, they pick the wrong guy. It could have been like the Bears, and they picked Trubisky, which is they're going to be solid.
Yeah, should have picked Mitch Trubisky, instead of Patrick Mahomes. I feel better. I've kind of gotten it off my chest, but I get reminded again of just how sure y'all are of like, oh, this is the right, this is the wrong, this is the right. Picking Penix, that's insanity. Shut up. Wait and see. Find out as we all do as the future goes ahead. Here's the one metric I will continue to go by, and it actually seems to be working, and actually NFL general managers seem to be jumping on my bandwagon. I actually have videos of this from last year, and I've been saying this for a while. If you can pop up this picture for me. If you want to give me a metric to try to pick a quote-unquote sure thing, son of a pro. Give me a son who already had a father who was a professional athlete in that sport before them. I'm going to give you a better than usual chance that they are going to be successful. Give me the son of a pro athlete, especially in the sport that they actually played, and I'm giving you at least a better, more likely try to predict through the chaos. This is at least a pretty good metric to think he's at least probably going to be at least decent. He's at least going to be a good player. And there's a lot of reasons why, as I've explained this before, but when you look at the sons of pro athletes and why I think general managers and myself and others who look at this value them so much, for one, they grow up understanding what it takes. They've been around this type of greatness from birth. They obviously have the genetics, they have the training, but they also have the maturity. They understand this is not new to them. They've seen what it takes to succeed at a pro level before them, so they have the focus, they have the poise. You grow up around star athletes and being in big stadiums and all that. None of that stuff is going to, phase you or upset you. They're able to handle pressure, it seems like, better. The bright lights do not scare them. I will always go with the son of a pro athlete before I'll go with anybody else. And it wasn't just in this last season and in other sports, whether it's Steph Curry, Klay Thompson, the Bonds, the Griffeys of the world. I mean, the NFL. Specifically, if you look at just in the NFL, when I'm trying to make the argument for why sons of pros seem to work out, it's not just that it's happened a lot. It's been multiple kids in the same family. It's been brothers. There are groups of brothers that are sons of pros in the NFL that have had great careers for every reason I just said. You got Joey and Nick Bosa, the sons of John. You got Peyton and Eli, the sons of Archie. You got Christian and now Luke McCaffrey. We'll see how he does. He just got drafted. Terrell and Tremaine Edmonds, son of Pharrell. You got Kyle and Chris Long. You got Clay Matthews. Now Shadur Sanders will probably be picked next year. But again, just go down the list. Joey and Nick Bosa, Peyton and Eli Manning, Christian and Luke McCaffrey, Terrell and Tremaine Edmonds, Chris Long, Kyle Long, Clay Matthews, Shadur Sanders. Sons of pros is always a good way to go. And I'm glad to see that general managers are kind of starting to pay attention to this because, again, it makes all the sense in the world. They obviously are going to understand what it takes. They've been around greatness. They understand they have the genetics and the training. They got the maturity. They understand the focus that's necessary. Poise under bright lights. They're not going to be, none of this is new to them. And so just this season and in the top 4 and 5 picks, we had this happen. And this is probably, if I'm going to make a guess, if I'm going to try to project after I just bitched about it's almost impossible to predict the chaos, I'm going to predict these two are going to do quite well. Marvin Harrison Jr., I think is an absolute stud out of Ohio State. He was just picked up by Arizona. If there's anyone I'm going to say I'm going to give my immediate vote for possible Rookie of the Year, I'm going with Marvin Harrison Jr., son of the legendary Colt receiver. And then Joe Alt was just picked up by the Chargers. And oh, by the way, he wasn't just the only son of a pro just this year that was picked up by the Chargers. They also picked up Brendan Rice, wide receiver, son of the great Jerry Rice. So now they have two. Chargers are seeing what I'm talking about. Harrison at number 4 at Arizona. Again, Luke McCaffrey, his brother's already kicking ass now, was just picked up by the Commanders. And even Frank Gore Jr. Shout out to Frank Gore. He's unsigned, but he got signed by Buffalo. But it does seem like everyone else is starting to wake up to something that I have been preaching for a while, that in trying to, delve through all the madness and the unpredictability, if you have a chance to pick the son of a pro athlete, go with that. 99 times out of 100, you will not most likely be disappointed. History has shown that. This draft has shown that. And so I get to be right. That's always nice. I like being right. Don't get it much at home, but I can say it here. Next story, I want to talk about the NFL draft, and then I'm going to move on to LeBron being homeless and where he's going to go. This is a story I've been sitting on for a couple years. Spencer Rattler and One Bad Day. I'm going to call this One Bad Day, and I remembered when it happened. And so as we put the picture up here, the Joker famously once said, all it takes is one bad day to reduce the sanest man to lunacy. You are just one bad day away from being me. And I think all of us either know or have experienced kind of what he's talking about there. But again, it's one of my favorite quotes. All it takes is one bad day, and nobody has lived this more out than Spencer Rattler in the last 100 years, as I'll tell you about his draft prospects and what I think going forward. But man, the example I always used before this was Wally Pipp. And a lot of you kids, you don't know this stuff, so let me go ahead and take you down memory lane and give you a story time to explain what I'm talking about, then I'll move on to Spencer. So Wally Pipp in 1925 was, as you see in the picture with the Joker, the top two guys there, the black and white. On the right there is Wally Pipp. Wally Pipp in 1925 was the starting first baseman for the New York Yankees for a decade. And he was a very good player. He had won World Series. He had had success. One day, Wally Pipp had a headache. He said, I need to sit out the game, pops a couple of aspirins. He sits down. To replace him at first base was a dude named Lou Gehrig, who not only is one of the greatest baseball players of all time, who also had the 70-year-long record for playing 2,130 consecutive straight games. Wally Pipp had one bad day, had one headache, and he sat down, and the person who replaced him happened to be Lou freaking Gehrig, who's not just one of the greatest players of all time, who also never missed a game for 2,130 game straight, the 70-year record. And then, by the way, Wally Pipp was cut at the end of the year, went on to the Reds, and retired a few years later. Spencer Rattler. It's been almost 100 years to the dot, which is almost crazy. Spencer Rattler was just not that long ago the 5-star number 1 quarterback prospect. You got to remember, Spencer Rattler in 2019 was the 5-star number 1 consensus high school quarterback. He was the star of Netflix's QB1. He was one of the biggest deals in the world. He had got offers to Alabama, Notre Dame, Miami, but he decided on Oklahoma. And in 2021, after a couple years of playing, he was not just the Heisman, consensus at that point at the start of that season. He was also the consensus at least top 10 pick. Spencer Rattler was on his way. He goes from being one of the greatest high school quarterbacks of all time, going to one of the greatest programs of all time. He is now a Heisman contender, and he's going to be probably at least a top 10 pick. And then they go to the Red River Shootout against Texas, and he had one bad half. And if you could play the video for me here, instead of it being Lou Gehrig and Wally Pipp, for Spencer Rattler, he had one bad half after being one of the greatest quarterbacks in high school and college and a consensus Heisman Trophy winner. He had one bad half against Texas, and then his backup, a guy named Caleb Williams, who just was picked just a couple days ago as the number 1 consensus pick. Caleb Williams, a true freshman backup. After everything that was going right for him, he had one bad half. And suddenly, Caleb Williams comes in. One of the first plays he gets, he does the 66-yard scramble, and it helps them lead this miracle comeback. Oklahoma was favored that game. They were supposed to win. They were down. It looked like all their chips were gone. So the coach says, you know what? Riley said, I got to sit you. I got to try this kid, Caleb. And Spencer Rattler goes from being the top dog, the number 1 player, the consensus Heisman winner, on his way after just that year to go ahead and go to the NFL and sign his big contract. He had one bad half. He got Wally Pipped. He had one bad headache. Instead of being replaced by Lou Gehrig, he got replaced by who happened to be anybody. It was Caleb Williams. And so now he has to sit there 2 years later. He just got picked in the 5th round by the New Orleans Saints and had to watch Caleb take his number 1 position, take his job, take the number 1 pick overall. Can you imagine? I'm just obsessed with it. What a mind F. To wake up one day, you wake up, you're the number 1 quarterback in the world. Your program's favored to be Texas in one of the biggest, coolest environments you could ever be in. It's going to be this wonderful day for you after you win the game. As your way to the Heisman and being a top 10 pick, you're probably going to lose all your bodily fluids partying on West End that night, and everything's going great. And then halfway through that day, you have one bad game, and the next thing you know, your career's gone. You're off to South Carolina. Oklahoma's gone. The Heisman gone. Your number 1 pick's gone. And now you're the number 5, 5th round pick for the New Orleans Saints. No guaranteed money, league minimum. He was picked a record 137 as a quarterback after Bo Nix. That was a record for the longest break in between, which shows that no team really has that much faith in him. He's fighting with Derek Carr now as a backup in New Orleans, and it's just, man, all it takes, one bad day. All it takes is just one bad day to reduce the sanest man to lunacy. The Joker said it. I think Spencer's felt it. And I hear he's kind of a dick and he's kind of a douchebag. And that was another reason that maybe he had some problems. But I think he's been humbled. They said South Carolina and being Wally Pipped kind of, changed things for him. So I'm rooting for you because that's a hell of a day, man. I remember when it happened trying to tell people, like, dude, can you imagine? Can you imagine waking up? You wake up that day, the top dog in the world, and within one half, it's poof, it's gone. Your backup just happens to be the guy who 2 years later is going to be considered the new Patrick Mahomes and the consensus number 1 pick. You lose your school, you lose your Heisman, you lose your top pick, and next thing you know, 2 years later, you're happy to be picked 5th round by the New Orleans Saints to fight for a backup job at the league minimum. Just one bad day. Brutal. All right, moving on. Next story here. And we're going to have fun with this. I think LeBron's done in Los Angeles. Hopefully, by the time this podcast is released, yes, they were able to win their one little game against Denver. But the fact is, I think LeBron has to find a new home. Corey, if you could put this up for me here. This is what He's homeless, man. LeBron's looking for work, man. I really think after it's 3-1. Once Denver actually gets this done, Denver's now won 11 of 12. They swept them last year. They kicked their ass this year. I think LeBron, as I've been saying this for a very long time, is looking for a new home for him and Bronny. As you see, he's got the sign up there. The logo, LeBron, that's a little bit immature of you, but I get it. Denver's been your foe. It's been rough for you. You need a new place to work. They need to move on from you. I do think, as reports are saying, he's going to opt out, just in case you need to know, Lakers fans. LeBron, reports are saying, is going to opt out of his $51 million deal next year and is going to be seeking a new no-trade clause. And I think there's a very good reason, and everything I've been telling you before, I have video after video after video after video of telling you LeBron is leaving Los Angeles as soon as they lose. He's going to go where Bronny goes. I've been screaming this for, 2 years now, and I have really tried to hammer this home. But now this even only gives me even more backup and evidence here, because if he's asking for a no-trade clause, that means he wants to go wherever his kid is, and he wants to have his last 1 or 2 years with them. He doesn't want to have any sort of mishaps or any problems. He wants to make sure whatever team I go to, take Bronny, take me, we're going to stay there. I'm going to finish out my last couple of years. I'm going to go ahead and call it a career. And again, this is one of the few things about LeBron I'm not annoyed about. I'm not mad at. He's a super dad. This is in response to him not having the family environment that he wanted growing up. He has gone some people either they follow in the, absent dad's footprints, or they go ahead and go the other direction. LeBron goes the other direction. He's a great dad. And he's always been one, and he wants to play and do something historic that no one's ever seen. We've seen it in baseball. We've seen it in hockey. We've seen it in other places. We have never seen in the NBA. We never had the opportunity for a father and son play on the same team. It's extremely cool. And in a great, legacy of all sorts of things that he's going to leave behind, this might be the coolest one. This might be some of the best memories that he have, is seeing LeBron and his kid. Who doesn't Tiger Woods and his son just played golf recently. That was huge ratings. LeBron and Bronny are going to be huge ratings. He wants it. I'm pretty sure that's why he's seeking the no-trade clause. And so I know he's going to opt out of his $51 million deal. Meanwhile, the Lakers, again, you're about to lose to Denver again. They have proven that, last year was not just a fluke. You really, as, constructed, do not have the talent. And LeBron and AD are not enough to get you past the Denver Nuggets. You only have $14 million in cap space next year. You only really have one pick, especially if New Orleans decides to say, nah, because they have the rights to your pick this year or next year. And they decide whether you have a pick or not this year. So if New Orleans decides to take their pick this year because they're pretty close and they say, hey, we're the 8 seed, but we've been playing well, we're only one pick away, and they take that away from you, now you only have a second-round pick, so you can't even really, quote-unquote, take a risk on Bronny, and I don't even know if he'll be there at that point. Plus, you just need to move on. LeBron needs to move on. I think the whole thing just works out to where LeBron's going to find a new home, and you can rebuild around Anthony Davis. He's signed with the Lakers until 2028. But in general, LeBron's leaving. He's going to join his son. I've been screaming this. I got multiple TikTok videos explaining this to you. But the new question that you may have, and I will try to answer now, is where is he going to go? Where is he going to go? I got 5 teams, but first of all, let me explain what he's going to need. So that's the next picture. I got a bunch of these. I'm going to keep Corey busy here for a second. I think he's got 3 things that he's looking for. He wants a team with cap space. I don't think he's going to take league minimum. LeBron James is just opting out of $51 million. Yes, he has all the money in the world. I still don't think, even to play with his son, he is going to accept a league minimum contract. So you got to have cap space. You're going to have picks to risk. Again, LeBron's son, Bronny, is a risk. I think he can actually be pretty good. I also think there's no way in hell he goes back to college because, like the old saying goes, better to be silent and thoughtful than speak and confirm it. For Bronny, I think it's better to be thought a prospect than to stay in college and prove that you're not. The mystery alone will probably get him in the top 25, 30 picks. I don't think he has the ability to try to risk that and stay in college, and he doesn't really have any need to. So you're going to have an extra pick most likely to take that risk. And also, the last thing is that you have to be contender or not be, quote-unquote, a shitty city. I mean, LeBron, other than Cleveland, and that's because that's where he's from, look at the 2 teams he's picked. He's picked L.A., he's picked Miami. LeBron's not going to want to go for a small market, some little bullcrap city. He's going to want, some stuff to do. It's LeBron James. There's certain cities I just don't see him actually deciding to end his career in. So again, that's my 3 caveats to where LeBron is going to have Bronny go, and he is going to follow. He's going to want a team with cap space. He's going to want a team with picks to risk, and he's going to want to make sure that they're at least a contender and not, quote-unquote, a shitty city. So I've ruled out a few teams that have been rumored, so we can go to the next one here. These are the teams I'm pretty sure that LeBron is not going to go with and join Bronny, and I'll tell you why. Again, Los Angeles, I've explained that. I don't think you can keep Bron and make the moves. You don't have the money. You don't have the picks. You would probably have to get like a Trae Young. I don't think you can afford everybody. You don't have the picks to play with. I think you've also just kind of hit a point of where the Lakers are not about just kind of being mediocre. They try to win titles every year. I think LA is out of it. I think you guys are done. Detroit, you have tons of cap space, and that's one of the rules I have. You do have the money for it, but you're a shitty city and you're a shitty franchise. You just set the record for the most losses in a row. He's not going there. Orlando, he actually said he'd retire. There were rumors last year that the Magic were saying, hey, we'll draft Bronny and bring LeBron, and then there were reports saying LeBron said, I will flat retire. So it's not even me saying, Orlando, you're kind of a shitty city and franchise. He's actually, there's, hearsay reports saying that he would not go to you, so Orlando's out. Cleveland and Chicago would be cool storylines, but you don't have the money, and you really don't have that many picks, and so between the two, I don't think he'll play for you guys for the minimum. Utah is actually an interesting one because you guys do have 2 picks just this year. You in the first round, you have cap space. I'm going to go against you because, again, the city. I don't think LeBron wants to go to Utah. This guy went to Miami. He went to Los Angeles. I don't think he's want to go to Utah. Oklahoma City is interesting. I'm still ruling you out, and here's a couple reasons why. Because you have everything. You have the picks, you have the cap space, you have the talent, you are contenders. I've lived in Oklahoma City. It's actually not a bad city, but does Oklahoma City want it? And that would be the bigger part, too. They already have a lot of guards. Do they even want a Bronny even as a prospect? And also, do they want an elder LeBron James who's still good in that whole sideshow? It looks like they have a good chance to win the entire thing this year. So I'm ruling them out, even though you have everything that you need, because honestly, this is something that fits in better other teams. So again, I've rolled out Detroit, Orlando, Cleveland, Utah, Oklahoma City, and Los Angeles. So here are my top 5 places. Top 5 places when I've looked at everything. I've looked at cap space, I've looked at the ability for having picks to risk, and I've looked at not being a shitty city and a somewhat decent contender. Here are the 5 teams that I think LeBron and Bronny will go to next season. I've been right about this so far, so follow me. Number 5, Corey, if you can go ahead and hit this for me. New York Knicks. I like this one. I'm not against it. I actually think it's a pretty good idea. Now, the New York Knicks do have 2 first-round picks this year, which is huge because, again, you can, quote-unquote, risk on Bronny. You kind of still need a final push and a final player to put you over the hump. I don't put you in Boston. I don't really put you in Milwaukee when healthy category. So you could use a even advanced LeBron James at this point, and Bronny could actually, again, be a decent prospect. The problem for New York is you don't have the money. You guys don't have, you have 8 players next year, 6 players with 8-figure salaries. You don't have the money. I don't think LeBron, even in New York, is going to want to come for a league minimum, even though he's worth $1 billion. I think there's an ego here to where he's not going to want to accept that. If he's going to turn down $51 million, he's not going to come to you for the league minimum. So you have everything else. You're the contenders. You're the right city. You have the picks. There's a lot of things that work out, but you don't have the money to pay for LeBron. So that's why I only got you at number 5. Number 4, if you can go hit this one for me, Corey. Like I said, I'm keeping Corey busy here. Keeping my man working. Toronto Raptors. Interesting. Toronto Raptors have $60 million in cap space. They're one of the top ones. They have 2 first-round picks. They actually have probably projected the 6th and the 19th pick. They are not set at their guard position, so Bronny has an opportunity to work up there. Some of their best guards are like Bruce Brown and Dennis Schrader. It's not exactly murderer's row. It's not Stephen Clay. So there's a chance that even Bronny could move up very quickly in that environment. The only thing is it's Toronto, and I'm not trying to diss, but it's cold, it's Canada, it ain't LA, it ain't Miami, it ain't New York, who I just brought up. You're Toronto. And, other than Drake, what else is there to do and watch hockey games? I think, it's still up there. It's number 4 for me. And actually a pretty good team with a nice group of young players there that you could work with. And LeBron could definitely help them and lead them. So you have everything that I'm looking for overall. You have the picks, you have the money, you have talent. You could be a contender in the East, but it's Toronto. And no offense to Toronto, I don't think LeBron is going to want to bring his old James gang up there. So that's the reason I only have you at number 4. Number 3 is an interesting one. Philadelphia 76ers. Philadelphia 76ers, who currently are dealing with injuries and problems and woes, but they still are next year going to have Joel Embiid. They are still going to have 2 first-round picks in 2026 that they can work with. They lost one of their picks this year due to tampering issues, but they're going to have, and this is the big one, why I think LeBron and Bronny could work over there, because the only things that Philadelphia has signed to them right now are Paul Reed and Joel Embiid, and that's it. Other than that, next season, they are going to have $86 million in cap space to play with, an entire roster that Rich Paul, LeBron's agent, can have all sorts of fun with and all sorts of opportunities to go ahead and structure their team just how they want it. So for that reason and that reason alone, the picks are, you have some of them. Philadelphia, I will get to that in a second, the city itself. But when you have $86 million and the one player that you have signed is Joel freaking Embiid, you put LeBron and Joel together with any sort of decent talent around them, you have a chance and an opportunity to win in the Eastern Conference. The reason I only have you guys at number 3 is because you're Philadelphia. Anybody who's played sports will tell you being in Philadelphia is an entirely different world. And I mean, look, I don't mean to hate on LeBron, but the dude's a little sensitive. And if you're a sensitive type who, listens to fans and doesn't like boos and likes to be the favorite and doesn't want to be the villain, Philadelphia ain't for you, dog. Philadelphia booed Santa. They're the biggest bunch of assholes this side of the planet. There's nobody more obnoxious, loud, and will turn on you on a dime quicker than a Philadelphia fan. And just ask like Ben Simmons, who's a lot more mentally inept than LeBron is. LeBron's got some toughness to him, but he doesn't like having, that type of energy. And Philadelphia lives on that type of energy. The city of brotherly love my ass. They are some of the biggest assholes you'll ever see as a fan base. They are ruthless. They are vicious. They will call you out. Now, they will love you if you win. They will also be the most supportive. But that yin and yang, even though you have everything else, I don't think LeBron likes that. I don't think he's going to want to go there, so that's why I only have you at number 3. Number 2 actually used to be my number 1. San Antonio Spurs, I actually think maybe still should be number 1, but I'll give you a reason for my number 1 team, which is a surprise. But LeBron and Bronny fit on the San Antonio Spurs for every reason that I've mentioned and every reason in the world that it works. And I still think is probably the best fit for them. They have picks galore. They have $20 million in cap space. He loves and respects that head coach Popovich. He can mentor Victor Wembanyama. Victor is, by the way, under contract for the next couple of years, so they can afford to keep LeBron and keep Victor on cheap and still have money to play around and bring in other people. They are one of the greatest franchises in all of sports history. They have a, repeated, expectation of greatness and culture and doing all the things that I'm sure Bron is going to want to have his son Bronny be a part of and learn and grow. I mean, there is really nothing wrong with the San Antonio Spurs other than you probably won't contend. And, can Bron and bring in another free agent? Now, again, I cannot, forget the fact that Rich Paul is their agent. So I was even, in other comments and discussions being like, hey, Trae Young is also part of Clutch Sports. What if you put Trae, LeBron, and Victor and give them, some talent around them? Could that be enough to win the West? I don't know, but they would at least be good. So that's really the only baby issue I have with them. Other than that, Spurs have everything you want. They have one of the only coaches in the world that LeBron really respects and wants to play for. They have a perfect mentor-mentee situation with him and Victor. They have all the picks they need. They have cap space. They have a franchise and a culture of doing great. San Antonio Spurs are probably the best one. But, and this pains me, my number 1 of where I think LeBron and Bronny could go and could fit and could do well pains the shit out of me, but Golden State Warriors. And I don't want to see it. I'm a Warriors fan. I don't want to touch this with a 10-foot pole, but there's been reports, and just last year, right at the trade deadline, there was already discussions there were calls made to see if they can get this done. Draymond Green working behind the scenes. Dunleavy made a phone call. It was like them in Philadelphia. There's only a couple of places that even made an inquiry. So there's already been a thought or interest to pair LeBron and Steph in the last couple of years of their career. I don't want to see it. However, on the floor, it makes a ton of sense. It makes a ton of sense. And the best way that it makes sense, and this is the only reason I will definitely say, personally, I don't want to see this, and the reason I don't think it could happen. The way this would work, LeBron on Golden State, is why I got the arrows. Switch LeBron for Draymond, I am all for it. And not only am I all for it for my own personal reasons, but on the court, I have said this before and I will say it again. LeBron James can do everything Draymond does, not only better, but without the bullshit. LeBron makes some kind of silly statements now and again. He kind of complains, but he never has been suspended for a long period of time. He doesn't get in a bunch of fights. He doesn't act like an asswipe. He doesn't sucker punch his own teammates. He doesn't cause distraction after distraction after distraction. And they just happen to be about the same height, same weight, play pretty much the same position. And LeBron does everything on the floor better than Draymond. And even defense, if he wanted to, could play better defense than Draymond Green. But he's clearly a better passer. He's clearly a better shooter, better ball handler, better teammate, better leader. If we can somehow get it, and the contracts do work out, if you're able to put Draymond and Wiggins together in a package, you could, if you can get the Lakers to somehow bite on a sign-and trade, there is ways to do it. But because Draymond is part of Clutch Sports and because Draymond was the one making the phone calls even just last season trying to make this trade happen, something tells me that they're not going to be able to do that switch. So that's why I don't want to see it. And also, by the way, it's not really feasible other than some big trade way of doing it. I really don't know unless LeBron did take the league minimum. He does want to play with Steph. He does like a good culture. It's possible, but on the court, this one makes the most sense. I still think there's going to be issues of like, even if Steph and LeBron won together, would anyone give him any credit, even at their advanced age? I don't know. But he fits the culture. I mean, team over, selfishness, everyone working together as one unit. No, not all the pressure being on one guy. Everyone has their parts and their roles, and we're about winning and about no nonsense. And, everything that works as far as the on the court and even the flow and pace and play of the game, he would fit in Golden State like a glove, especially if I can get him switched out for Dre. They don't have the money. They only have 1 second-round pick, but there has been reports of this. And the only reason I don't want to see it because I'm a fan of Steph, and I haven't really liked LeBron for very long, so I don't want to see it, but on the court it makes sense. The only reason that I don't think it'll happen is that you can't do LeBron for Dre. You also don't have the money. They got a bunch of issues with free agency. They got to pay Klay Thompson. There's a bunch of stuff going on, but if you actually just went by what works as far as on the actual basketball court, that's the number one. That's where I'd put him first. There you go. We'll find out as soon as they're done with Denver. Hopefully the series will be over here pretty soon. I mean, they made their little, they'll get a gentleman's sweep out of this. But the Lakers are about to lose to Denver, and we'll see what goes on in the future. All right, how am I doing on time? Where am I at? 10 minutes. I got 10 minutes. All right, let me go ahead and play a couple more videos here. This is just some fun I want to have at the end of the show. When I have a chance to do this, I like to do it. I played one of these before. This was with Caitlin Clark, but since I was just talking about the Golden State Warriors, deep fakes are scary. I don't know what we're going to do about this. It's getting harder and harder and harder to decipher the difference between someone just making a bullshit video on AI or the actual one that's done. And as Mark Twain famously said, the lie can travel halfway around the world before the truth even has a chance to tie its shoes. This is another example of this. This is quote-unquote Steph Curry in an AI deepfake. Go ahead and hit it for me.
Man, where do I start? Clay was out there building a brick house going 0 for 10. I mean, how do you score 0 points? He was working real hard to make sure CP3 never gets a ring. And don't even get me started on Draymond. He beat Jordan Poole's ass for making fun of LeBron's bunions and ruined our team. He should retire immediately and fight Jake Paul. As for me, I'm calling up LeBron and going to the Lakers. Can you imagine? Me, LeBron, AD, and Bronny.
So even AI is thinking it. And by the way, again, none of that was real. That's all fake. But, I mean, they're getting closer. They're getting closer. Every single video of this I see, I'm like, Jesus Christ. Imagine when we start using this to put on the news, framing people for stuff they didn't do. This is all Black Mirror. This is all every movie that you've seen. This is a nightmare that is only going to get worse and worse and worse. And I don't know how humans are going to handle it. But in the meantime, it's entertaining to watch stuff, quote-unquote talk shit that they never actually said. And it kind of makes me laugh. Something that is also even weirder and scarier is the next video I'm going to bring you here. I don't know who these kids are. I don't know where this came from. I don't know why they're doing it, but go ahead and hit play, Corey. Again, I don't know who these kids are. I don't know why they're walking pigs with a stick. But I mean, look, maybe, apparently this is part of it. You have to stare forward. But this is the look of, man, can you imagine being locked in a room and it's dark, and one of these kids was slowly walking this pig towards you? Look at the insane look. What the hell are they doing? What is this? And why are they children of the corn staring straight? I don't know what. Can someone please comment, tell me what this event is, what the hell they're doing? God, that is creepy. That is the look of your final moments. If that girl and that pig and that stick walk in front of you and you're alone together somewhere in the back alley, you're done. Go ahead. Call it. Call it a day. Creepy ass stares. I don't know what that is. Some redneck stuff. Other than that, I really don't have any answers for you. But good God, do they scary. This last one's more inspirational. I want to end on a high note. Don't ever let anyone tell you can't do anything. And don't let anyone, help you try to feel sorry for yourself too much. I want to end on a happy note. I want to end on happy things. This is from some little league in some country somewhere. But, man, if you ever thought about, I can't, do this, I can't do that, life's too tough, look at this video. Be this kid. A one-legged little league baseball player with a crutch, not with an actual leg, with a crutch. Go ahead and hit it. This is just, don't say you can't do anything. Don't say life's too hard. Look at this kid. He's on some damn crutch. I mean, it's not even connected to his leg. Playing Little League. I'm guessing Mexico or somewhere Spanish with the Liga in the background. Look at him. Look at him go. Smacked it. Running with the crutch attached to his little stump there. Pulled off a double. That's insane. How great is that? Teammates are going nuts. Don't ever say you can't do anything. Don't let anyone tell you that things are too hard or that you can't accomplish something. That little bastard can hit a one-legged double in Little League with a crutch just taped to his leg. You know, whatever you got going on, I'm sure you could do it too. Well, I know what I got to do. I got to go. Out of time. Talk to you later.